Guys, I have no idea how the Chinese do it because, well, here I am with the XPeng L03. It's a new coupe SUV, a little bit smaller than the very popular XPeng G6, and yes, it is coming to Singapore. But when you see what this car has to offer, what's inside the cabin, what's under the skin, and when you see the price, you're gonna go like, what? Make no mistake, XPeng wants your money, and though it now sees itself as a physical AI company, it didn't just fly MrChia to Germany just to see its flying car or humanoid robots. So the L03 is a super important model for XPeng. I mean, normally you'll see a cool Chinese car come out in China first, and then they internationalize it for the rest of the world, and then we get it. But the L03 is actually being launched as XPeng's first global model. So He Xiaopeng himself came all the way here to Munich in Germany, the home of BMW, to personally launch the car, forcing himself to speak English.
Let's talk about price.
And I think the message there is, watch out world, we are coming for you. But it also means that, well, this car has to be super competitive. Whew, okay, some aircon at last. Now, Singapore, what are we getting? Well, there are two versions of the L03 headed our way. At the very top is the dual motor all-wheel drive, and that's going to be really fast. It's the one you're going to buy if you always wanted like a BMW M car or Mercedes AMG. It's got 387 horsepower, but the bread and butter one, the one everyone is going to be interested in, is the single motor rear-wheel drive. That one is going to come in, and it's going to come in category A. Both of them will be launched in Singapore by the end of the year, fourth quarter 2026. In other markets, there's going to be a range extender electric vehicle REEV version that has a small petrol engine that doesn't power the car directly, but it does make electricity for the motors. And fully charged and fully fueled, that's good for a range of more than 1,000 kilometers. But we're not getting that. But something else I want to say is that this L03 leans really heavily on AI technology for AI-powered self-driving, and we're also not getting that. Okay, I will explain that later, and I will also explain how that impacts the price. But for now, let's conceptualize this in terms of its size. So this car is 4.65 meters long, it's 1.89 meters wide, and it's only 1.6 meters tall, because it's kind of low slung for a coupe SUV, and I bet you just thought I was a pretty tall guy, right? The wheelbase is 2.85 meters, and the upshot of all those numbers is that this car is not meant to take on the Tesla Model Y directly. I mean, XPeng already has a G6 for that. Now, if you want to think about this car, think about the Volkswagen ID.4, it's a bit bigger than that, or maybe even the Volkswagen Tiguan. Yeah, then you would be in the right neighborhood. But hey man, this is so much more stylish than a boxy family SUV, right? I mean, look at these lines, they are so smooth and so clean that I can remove the dirt from my hand just by rubbing it over the surface of the car. Hey, but it's not just smooth and featureless, right? I mean, look at these headlights, for example. They really broaden the front of the car, and they're very distinctive looking. So XPeng calls this the Starship headlight design, and I can totally see like a Concorde or maybe even the Space Shuttle. It's a nice bit of jewelry, and it's pretty intricate as well. There's more than 400 LEDs that go into the making of the headlamps. But it's one of those things that I think gives it such a distinctive face that whenever you see one of these coming at you, you're gonna think like, huh, XPeng L03. And I think the same is true of the back as well, because it has this really distinctive light bar, or light bars that run across the back of the car. So when you see this, you're gonna know what it is. It's a very premium looking feature, but one of my favorite little styling features are these sort of bleed holes over here. I honestly don't know if they serve any purpose or not, but at least they do remind you of how aerodynamic this car is. So the coefficient of drag for this car is just 0.228. So how do we contextualize that? Well, when XPeng first started to design this car, they started to hack away at bits here and there to bring the coefficient of drag lower and lower and lower. And by the time they got to 0.228, they found that for some versions of the car, the range actually went up by as much as 47.5 kilometers, all thanks to the aero. But there are a lot of little features to feast the eye on as well. I really like these frameless wing mirrors over here as well. There's a very neat integration for the camera on the side as well. And check out the door handles, so they are partially hidden. I like these much more than the sort of chopstick style pop-up ones that were once very common. And of course, this being a coupe SUV, we do have frameless windows as well. But I really gotta say, my favorite view of the car is more towards the back, because there are three things that really stand out for me. There's this pillar treatment over here. It's like, did they forget to join this part over here? And when you see it for the first time, it's like, huh, that's really interesting. And then if you come around the side over here, just look at the shape of this thing and how it's sort of swept back like that. I think it's really, really sporty. And finally, there's just the stance of the car. There's a haunch over here that looks really powerful, and yeah, this car is thick. And if you think you're seeing a little bit of like supercar styling here, well, then let's give a shout out to Juanma Lopez. He was the head of exterior design at Ferrari. When he was there, he worked on LaFerrari, he worked on SF90, a whole bunch of models, and now he's the VP of design at XPeng. So just think about that for a second. Like with the electric Ferrari, we could have had something like this. Well, at least we have this, and at least I could almost afford one of these. Okay, so let me list off some of the premium features that come with this car. Starting with a head-up display, which you can't see, but it is there. And this car also has ventilation, massage front chairs, which I think are a must-have. It also has a 20-speaker sound system, which goes really well with electric vehicles because they're so quiet, right? And one more thing, which is related to that, it does have active noise cancellation. I mean, there is a lot of padding in the doors for that reason, but this has a dedicated noise cancellation chip. And it actually uses some of the speakers to fire off frequencies to cancel out noise. And it's so effective that at certain situations, it can reduce road noise by as much as 50%. Okay, in front of me there is a little driver display, thumbs up for that. And this is a 15.6-inch touchscreen. Okay, that's a fairly common size these days, right? But what's new about this car is that it debuts a new operating system. It's called XOS 6. And apparently XPeng did this from scratch. And from what I can see, it kind of looks like what's already out there. So that's a good thing because on the existing XPengs, well, these are very customizable. They're actually quite easy to use. So if I want to change this over here, I can just delete this and add new features, whatever I like. But the main difference is this is supposed to use AI to be very conversational. So you should be able to talk to this car as if it was your friend. So I don't know what that would sound like. And you know what? I'm not here to make friends, and I also don't have a lot of time with this car. So why don't I save that for when I have my hands on this car in Singapore to check that out. Okay, but I've already noticed two things I don't like about this car. The first one is this glass roof above me, a panoramic glass roof. Okay, I know it looks cool, it lets light into the cabin, but there's no roller shade or shutter or anything, and on some really hot days in Singapore, you're just not going to want this. The second thing is the aircon vents are hidden, and you know what that means, right? I have to use this to try and aim them at my face, and you know what? I just hate these. I just hate these so much. On the other hand, if you look at the dashboard, it just looks so neat. I mean, the gestalt of the thing is like nothing's out of place. Everything looks tidy. And then look at this ambient lighting over here. You have 256 colors to choose from. I can only name like 6, 7 colors tops. So the other thing I like is that it wraps around the cabin so nicely. It is kind of soft and underlit, so very indirectly lit. And I bet you, when you drive this car at night, it's just gonna look so nice and slick. So yeah. This is a nice gestalt. By the way, I have a small favor to ask. If you are enjoying this video or finding it remotely useful, please consider subscribing. We are a pretty small channel and that would really help us out. Thank you very much. Oh, and if you don't feel like doing it, that's okay too. I'll work it out with my therapist. Now, let's have a look back here because the first thing you want to find out about a car like this is how much space you have, and actually pretty good back here. This is a coupe SUV, but somehow, I'm actually not short on headroom. I've got a lot of legroom as well. This is my driving position. I am 1.75 meters tall. In terms of the important stuff, I do have rear aircon vents manually pointed. That's good. USB-C charging, just one, but yes, that's there. The other thing that's important to look at the back of a car like this is quality, because the back is where some car makers try to save a little bit of money and skimp on quality materials. But honestly, I gotta say, so far, okay, maybe not that, but my fingernails, I'm actually pretty happy. And that applies to even the areas of the car like this. Now this car purports to be a bit of a storage king. There are apparently 37 storage spaces all around the cabin, and that includes things like the map pockets. I'm sure it includes these cup holders over here, and even this door handle over here, it's counted as a storage space for a mobile phone. But let me show you something pretty neat. I'm just gonna climb out here, put this away. Under this seat over here, I do have a little drawer, and yeah, someone's left a drink and a snack over there for me. So yeah, this car does have a lot of little hidden storage spaces, very useful of course, and this is apparently 10 liters, so what would that be? Something like 30 cans of beer? Yeah, I mean, this is Bavaria, right? So I'm sure this is why Germans are rushing to buy this car. This isn't a beer, but well done, XPeng. Another place to hide your beer is the frunk, which is 102 liters in the single motor version and 69 liters in the dual motor. But if you don't have to hide your beer at all, then you can go crazy in the back because, well, here you have 539 liters of capacity, and that includes what's under the floor. 539? Yeah, that's pretty big for a coupe SUV. Now, this being an electric car, you're gonna wanna know how far it can go on a single charge. Well, there's two versions of the car, right? There's a dual motor all-wheel drive version, and that's really powerful. It gets from 0 to 100 in 4.5 seconds. So obviously that uses more energy, and that car has a range of only 440 kilometers WLTP. But I think the more popular rear-wheel drive single-motor version obviously uses less energy. That's going to have a range of 520 kilometers WLTP. Oh, but guess what? That is based on the European version of the car, which has 249 horsepower. The ones we're going to get in Singapore are going to be detuned to 150 horsepower max, so maybe they'll go even further. The battery on this bad boy has a capacity of 70.5 kilowatt hours. And when it comes to charging speed, well, okay, AC charging is at 11 kilowatts, so that's pretty standard, but the fast charging supports charging at up to 236 kilowatts. So this car supports 3C charging. That means it can go from 10 to 80% in about 20 minutes. And finally, it's time to talk about the price. So it is July 2026 as I film this, so minimum 3 months away from this car being launched in Singapore. So whatever I tell you now is going to be pretty much pure speculation, but I predict that the price for the XPeng L03 is going to start at $200,000 with COE plus minus. Good price, bad price? Let me know in the comments. So now I want to talk about AI a little bit. How does AI actually drive a car? Well, okay, let's think about how ChatGPT works, right? You give an input in form of words. So you type something in, and then it tokenizes those words, and then it tries to calculate like how near those words should be to other words. And then it assembles the answer into a sentence. So there's an input and then there's an output. It's kind of similar with a self-driving car, but you have to think about what's the input and what's the output. So the clue is in the name here. The system architecture for XPeng's self-driving system is called VLA 2.0. That's vision, language, and action. So the inputs are visual. It takes information from the car's camera and maybe the proximity sensors to work out what's going on around the car and try to predict what's going to happen next. And language, well, remember I told you you could talk to this car like a person. So you could say something like, okay car, like go around the corner and find me a parking spot. So that's another bit of input. And then the output is the action. So it takes those inputs, does its thing, and then it sends a signal to like maybe the power steering motor, add a little bit of steering angle to the left by 1 degree. It sends a signal to the motors and the brakes, things like that. So yeah, that's how AI drives a car. And you can see the challenges here, right? Because, well, first of all, with ChatGPT, your input is a sentence, the output is a sentence. But here, it's got a continuous stream of basically data with no structures. And the output is also continuous. It has to keep going, like a little bit of steering here, a little bit more there, a bit less now. And the third thing is that, well, this thing operates in the real world. And so if something goes wrong, there are real-world consequences. And you need massive computing power for that. All this processing has to go on locally. It can't just be done with the cloud because then there's too much lag or latency, right? So this car has a lot of brain power. That's where this bad boy comes in. This is the Turing AI chip. It's XPeng's own chip, and it can process 750 TOPS. So that's tera operations per second, or 750 trillion operations per second. So an operation is something like 5 times 5 plus 1 equals 26. That's one operation. And the human brain apparently has 1,000 TOPS. I'm not so sure about that for some people I know. But the top versions of this car have 3 Turing AI chips for a total of 2,250 TOPS. So yeah, this car should have done my PSLE for me. But here's the thing, the cars in Singapore are only gonna have 1 Turing AI chip. So that means it is not gonna come with VLA 2.0, no self-driving, and the hardware is not there, so it's not gonna magically be able to be updated one day, even when the regulations change and suddenly become a self-driving car. So I could see that you're a little bit disappointed, maybe even a little bit upset. But the thing is, I hear that the version of the car that comes with 3 Turing AI chips would cost a lot more, like $20,000 more. So really, the question is, are people gonna wanna pay $20,000 extra for a function that they can't actually use yet? I think we all know the answer to that. So it seems like we'll be getting a dumbed-down version of the L03 in Singapore. Certainly in terms of the self-driving hardware and software, it is not nearly as capable as what you could get in China. But look at what you do get. It is a stylish coupe SUV with a lot of space inside and a very practical boot, as well as lots of storage spaces. You get a lovely interior that looks nice and doesn't feel cheap. You get a lot of standard features, and you have a range of 520 kilometers WLTP. And of course, you have this Ferrari-like styling. And if you ask me, I think that alone is gonna help XPeng sell lots and lots of these. Am I wrong? Am I right? Well, leave a comment, hit subscribe, let me know, and thanks for watching.